Every Sunday morning, Yara would row out with her daughter just like always, but that day they never came back. And 14 months later, a voice singing from a rotting raft changed everything. There was no alarm, no goodbye message, no signs of struggle. Just another early morning in Clearwater, foggy quiet, and maybe a little too still. But for Malik Torres, a marine technician checking an old rescue beacon 6 miles offshore, what he heard sent chills down his spine, a childlike voice softly repeating the same lullaby in waters no one had touched in over a year. Before the disappearance that shook Clearwater to its core, Yara Coleman had always been a quiet, unassuming part of the sleepy seaside town. Not many people truly knew her, not in the personal sense, but nearly everyone had seen her at some point in a gray hoodie, her hair in a loose bun, her face calm and unreadable, except when she was with her daughter. Clearwater wasn't big, just over 6,000 people, a place where strangers stood out but quiet folks often faded into the background. Yara was the latter. She lived at the end of Cedar Street in a simple wooden cabin set apart from the denser parts of town. Not because she was hiding, she just liked it that way. It gave her space to breathe, one neighbor once said. Yara worked remotely, designing website interfaces for companies in Portland and Seattle. She was good, always met deadlines, but never talked much about what she did. She didn't go to church, didn't show up at town fairs, didn't have Facebook. All people really knew was this: every Sunday morning, exactly at 6 a.m., she'd appear at Dock 3 with a curly-haired little girl wearing a blue ribbon, clutching a worn fabric doll. They'd haul a weathered seafoam green tandem kayak into the water. Lena would sit up front, squealing with delight every time she saw a seal or seabird. Yara rarely spoke, but her face, when they were out on the water, was the only time she ever seemed fully alive. One local later said, "I used to think she was cold, but looking back, maybe she was just trying really hard not to fall apart." Since moving to Clearwater 4 years earlier, Yara had always avoided talking about her past. Rumors circled. Some said she'd once worked at a major design firm, but left after a system crash that she took the fall for. Others claimed she was escaping an abusive relationship. No one knew for sure, but everyone noticed she was careful. At the grocery store, she stood at the edge of the line, avoiding eye contact. When Lena played with other kids, Yara watched, never interrupting, but never looking away. Once, when a little boy accidentally bumped into Lena, Yara walked over without a word, calmly took her daughter's hand, and led her away as if even the slightest contact could be a threat. And then that Sunday morning she was gone. No splashing oars, no glimpse of Lena waving to the familiar fisherman, just absence. If there was one thing people remembered most after the disappearance, it was the bond between Yara and Lena, an invisible thread you couldn't quite describe, but you felt it if you watched them long enough. Lena, 6 years old, was a special child, quiet but never timid. Yara raised her in her own way, not overprotective, not harsh, but firm. Lena always carried a small notebook where she drew bird suns and their kayak, a sacred symbol, in her eyes. Once, when asked in class what she wanted to be when she grew up, Lena said clearly, "I want to live near the ocean so I can protect my mom." That answer hits differently now. Neighbors said there were nights when Yara would stand by the shore for hours after Lena was asleep, just watching the waves. Once someone saw her sitting alone on the rocks, no phone, no flashlight, just staring into the dark. When asked if she was okay, she smiled and said, "I'm just thinking about the ones I couldn't hold on to." It was a haunting reply, but no one thought much of it at the time. Kids at Lena's preschool often said she carried a lucky charma, green cloth ribbon tied in her hair since she could walk. She wouldn't let anyone touch it, not even her teacher. "Mom says if I always keep this on, I won't get lost." After the disappearance, when Lena's school bag was found, the one she wore every day, the green ribbon was missing. One teacher shared that just days before she vanished, Lena had drawn a picture titled, "We're leaving soon." In the drawing, she stood on a wooden raft next to a faceless adult whose shadow stretched far behind them. Yara had told no one about moving. No letters, no new lease, no goodbyes. But in the days leading up to it, her quiet actions, selling her old computer, buying freeze-dried food, hand-drawing maps, suggested she was preparing for something. Someone said, "People don't just leave like that, unless they're sure they can't come back." But the part that haunted people most was Lena. She was found to live, but the green ribbon was gone. Clearwater isn't the kind of place where things like this happen. It's a town built around the rhythm of the tides where folks know each other's names, and nothing ever makes bigger news than gossip at the corner store. People are used to the smell of salt, the lull of the sea, and the seasons marked by fishing cycles and the threat of storms. When Yara and Lena disappeared, that piece was sliced open, like a knife through fabric. At first, people assumed it was an accident. A sad one, but not unheard of strong currents, a wrong turn, a hidden whirlpool. The local police launched a search. Neighbors volunteered boats. A helicopter came in from Portland. But after a week, then too everything went quiet. No new leads, no one returned. Not a single message from Yara. Not a single distress call. And that's when people started to wonder, maybe she wasn't taken. Maybe she chose to disappear. Whispers spread, especially after a police officer allegedly leaked the phone found on the kayak wasn't dropped. It was sealed in a waterproof bag with a backup battery. Soon, the town split. Some believed Yara was a victim, watched, manipulated, or forced. Others suspected she had planned it, Alan escaped from society taking her daughter with her. But there was one thing neither side could explain why no one saw it coming. Yara had no close friends. She didn't confide in Lena's teachers. She left no note, no school transfer request, no pets abandoned, no unpaid bills, no financial trail. Even the man who delivered her groceries weekly said, "I can't even remember the last time she spoke to me." But she always paid on time. Always. She didn't seem like someone who wanted to disappear. As the months wore on, the case faded into a quiet kind of forgetting. Flyers blurred by rain. Prayers stopped echoing at the docks. Life in Clearwater resumed, but no one looked out toward the ocean without thinking of the mother and child who once appeared every weekend. And maybe because there was no closure, the silence became heavier than any scream. Until 14 months later, at around 6:30 a.m., on June 3rd, a familiar scene played out on the Clearwater Docks security camera, Yara Coleman, guiding her daughter, Lena, hair tied with that same blue ribbon, pulling their light green kayak toward the sea. Everything looked normal. No one else was with them. No sign of hurry. No one trailing behind. That morning's forecast called for mild sunlight wind and calm water-side-deal conditions for kayaking. Yara carried her usual canvas tote, a large water bottle, and a child's life vest for Lena. Around 11:15 a.m., a small tour boat spotted the kayak drifting near the southern breakwater, an area rarely visited due to treacherous rocks. The kayak was empty, but inside was a cream-colored fabric bag with the name Lena C. Printed on it a wet phone and an opened plastic lunch container. The tour boat immediately radioed the harbor. Within 45 minutes, Clearwater Police and the Marine Rescue Team were on site. The case was quickly treated as a potential person overboard in distress. A search area of over 12 square miles was marked off. 2 helicopters from the state security agency were dispatched, along with 4 Coast Guard rescue boats. Local volunteers, including fishermen, were called in. Divers arrived by that afternoon, but by nightfall, the result was the same: nothing. No one found, no blood, no signs of struggle, no clothing washed ashore, no evidence the kayak had capsized. Everything inside was still intact. Yara's phone was sent to the state digital forensics lab for data recovery, and though it had water damage, the device powered on once properly dried. What investigators found in the system logs sent chills down their spines. The last time the phone was used wasn't that morning. It was at 8:17 p.m. that same day, nearly 9 hours after Yara and Lena were presumed missing. And not just once. The phone was unlocked 3 separate times each, about 30 minutes apart. No internet access was recorded, but a new note had been added to the default notes app: "Don't turn on the light. Wait for the low moon. Remember what Mom taught." There was no user ID tied to the entry, but the handwriting lacked punctuation, just like the way Lena wrote, according to her preschool teacher. By day 3, with no progress, a quiet doubt began to seep through the search teams. No one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone understood: the longer the wait, the slimmer the chances. The search expanded. Local fishing boats were enlisted, as well as divers from neighboring counties. A temporary command center was set up right at the dock, the same one Yara and Lena had launched from every Sunday. Maps were covered in red marker. the sea air grew colder, and hope began to fade. Daytime operations gave way to night searches, especially after anonymous tips claimed to see flickering flashlight beams near the Cormorant Rock Sand area, long considered a dead zone because of dense underwater hazards. A police boat nearly ran aground trying to reach it. From then on, it was marked too dangerous for further inspection. Police also combed through traffic cams, bank records, and Yara's phone history. No suspicious calls, no unusual withdrawals, no signs of a planned escape. Even her internet search history revealed nothing more than terms, like how to lash a safe raft, keeping saltwater out of dry goods, and DIY water filter using sand. A local blogger named Harlow launched her own investigation. She uploaded a series of YouTube videos analyzing the case, interviewing neighbors, acquaintances, even strangers. Her videos gained hundreds of thousands of views, sparking heated debates. "No way a mother who loved her daughter like that would take such a risk," one comment read. But what if she knew she was being watched? Maybe it was the only way she knew to protect her child, another viewer countered. By the fourth week, a new object was found. Small pink plastic sandal matching the type Lena used to wear. But it offered no new clues, no DNA, no location data, no tears or signs of damage. In the sixth week, police announced a scaling back of the search and a pause in active rescue efforts. At a short press briefing, the Clearwater police chief said, "We are not giving up, but right now we have no new data to act on." The quote appeared in the local paper beside a photo of the drifting kayak hollow cold, and now locked away in storage. That night, under the rain, a stranger pulled up at the dock. He stepped out, placed a small bouquet of flowers next to a sign reading, "Deep waters do not enter after 6 p.m. He whispered, "You planned all of this, didn't you?" No one knows who he was, and the nearby camera lost connection at that exact moment. 2 months after the case was officially listed as inactive, an independent data analyst named Ezra Walton began reviewing all public camera footage around Clearwater. A former cybersecurity engineer living 90 miles away, Ezra was obsessed with unsolved cases. After nearly 3 weeks of scanning frame by frame, he found something unexpected at exactly 10:41 p.m. on June 2nd. The night before Yara and Lena were reported missing, traffic cam 1.2 miles from the dock captured Yara walking alone. She wore a dark coat, her hair loose, and carried nothing. Her expression was unreadable, but her steps were slow and deliberate. Strangely, she wasn't heading home. Instead, she veered off onto a narrow path that led to the western marshlands, an abandoned stretch long forgotten. Ezra submitted the footage to the police. They didn't release it publicly. But a week later, Yara's mother, who lived on the opposite side of the state, received a package with no return address. Inside was a grainy, low-quality photo printed on regular paper, Lena smiling, standing on what looked like a floating raft, holding her familiar fabric doll high above her head. On the back, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "I'm okay. Mom says don't be scared. Wait a little longer." Handwriting experts confirmed the note matched Lena's writing, but there were no fingerprints, no DNA. The package had been mailed from a small post office in a different state over 500 miles from Clearwater. Police immediately reopened the case, now treating it as a long-term abduction possibility. But there was no ransom, no signs of abuse, no information about who sent the letter or where Lena might be. And one question began to echo across online forums. If Yara had truly been harmed, how was Lena still alive and writing notes, mailing them from out of state? But if Yara had chosen to disappear, then where had she been all this time? 2 months after the case seemed to hit a dead end, a man named Malik Torres came forward to speak with Clearwater police. Malik, a navigation tech for fishing vessels based in the neighboring town of Astoria, said he wasn't sure if what he had to say would help, but he hadn't been able to stop thinking about that woman since the day she disappeared. Malik recalled that about 3 weeks before Yara vanished, she had approached him at a harbor cafe in Astoria. She asked detailed questions about handheld locator devices, emergency frequencies, and whether civilian tech could be used to mask a signal. Malik found it odd regular customers didn't ask about embedded loop signals or how to make a radio unit invisible to commercial radar. He had joked at the time, planning to disappear or something. Yara smiled, but didn't answer. What finally pushed Malik to come forward was a small detail he hadn't been able to shake. She'd scribbled something on a napkin, then absent-mindedly crumpled it. After she left, Malik opened it and found a simple sketch. It showed wave patterns around the Cormorant Rock area, with an arrow pointing toward a spot marked raft weight. He'd kept the napkin out of curiosity, but when he saw the photo of Lena and the raft in the news, he realized the kayak had been found almost exactly where the map pointed. Police immediately took his statement and asked Malik to hand over the napkin. While no clear DNA was recovered, ink impressions matched Yara's handwriting, verified against an old notebook previously seized by police. This revelation changed the investigation entirely. Yara hadn't just vanished. She had planned something. And the raft near Cormorant Rocks might have been part of that plan. But the questions followed: why, for whom? And if this was all deliberate, why was Lena left alone on that raft more than a year later? As police re-examined the case, another development emerged, this time from within Yara's own family. Her younger brother, Devin Coleman, based in Seattle, held an informal press conference with a group of independent reporters. What he revealed stunned the community. Devin shared that just 2 days before Yara disappeared, she called him at 2 a.m., something she'd never done before. She wasn't crying, he said, but her voice was trembling like she was trying hard to stay calm. She said, "If anything happens, remember, I would never leave Lena unless I had no choice." At first, Devin assumed she was sleep-deprived and anxious, but after everything unfolded, that call haunted him. He'd replayed the voicemail 23 times. Still, when he handed over the recording to authorities, they dismissed it, saying it lacked sufficient evidentiary value to indicate criminal intent or a premeditated disappearance. That response angered the family. Then came another account from Yara's cousin Clarissa, living in Georgia. She revealed that Yara had sent her a strange email just a month before vanishing. It read only, "If she ever asks about her father, just say her mom stayed silent to keep her safe." The startling part, Lena had never known her father. All records listed him as unknown. Some relatives had long speculated he might be tied to Yara's silence, but she never said anything. Another clue raised further suspicion. About a week after Yara's disappearance, her bank account showed a small transaction, 9.99, to an encrypted messaging platform often used for anonymous communication. The family believed this might have been her way of staying in contact unseen. But the payment was routed through an intermediary e-wallet, making it impossible to trace the end user. Alone, none of these clues proved anything. But together, they began to sketch a new picture of Yara, a woman with a plan, aware of a looming threat, and deliberately keeping everyone at a distance. And that raised another painful question. Did her silence end up putting Lena in danger? In search of new leads, an independent team led by blogger Harlow tracked down a former school social aide who had worked with Lena weekly for over a year. Her name was Mrs. Tegan Miles. She had moved away from Clearwater right after the disappearance, saying the case was too haunting. But when Harlow reached out, she agreed to share a never-before-seen video clip. The footage came from a schoolroom security Camerano sound. It was dated May 26th, exactly 1 week before Yara and Lena vanished. The 14-minute video showed Lena quietly coloring by herself. Another child approached and snatched her crayon. Lena's reaction was unusual. She stepped back, raised both hands to her face, and whispered something, almost like reciting a memorized phrase. Then she crouched down, pulled a folded piece of paper from her backpack, and stared at it silently for over 3 minutes. Mrs. Miles had kept the paper because it didn't feel right. On it was a crude drawing of a wooden raft, an arrow pointing to the moon, and a pencil-written line, "If no light shows, follow the singing." Child behavior experts reviewed the footage and concluded it suggested psychological conditioning, the kind of training where a child is taught how to respond in specific situations. It reinforced the theory that Yara had planned for both of them to disappear, and Lena was coached not to panic if something went wrong. Around the same time, journalist Kimball Grady discovered that in the year before the disappearance, Yara had repeatedly searched for topics like off-grid survival techniques, building shelters with no trace, and how to preserve food using natural materials. All of it was accessed from public Wi-Fi with no user logins. And, perhaps most haunting of an old computer Yara's family had donated to the local library, was found to contain a hidden video file. It had been recorded by Yara herself. In it, she sits in front of the camera, eyes unblinking, and speaks a single sentence. "If I disappear, it's not because I wanted to run. It's because I had no other choice." The video ends immediately after. The timestamp on the file 1:03 a.m. June 3rd, just 5 hours before Yara and Lena stepped onto that kayak and vanished. Nearly 3 weeks after Yara's hidden video was released, a shocking piece of information surfaced from the old files of the Portland Police Department, where Yara had lived before moving to Clearwater. An archivist discovered a complaint filed 7 years prior, submitted by Yara herself, accusing a man named Dion Van Sea, freelance software engineer, of harassment, stalking, and unauthorized access to her personal data. According to the report, Dion had been someone she met through a support group for single parents. Their early interactions were friendly, but after a few meetings, Yara felt he became controlling, questioning where she went, what she did, even sending her photos of Lena as proof that he was watching. Yara had changed her phone number, deleted her social media, and moved multiple times after her complaint wasn't taken seriously. But the terrifying part: that original report was never transferred to Clearwater when she registered residency there, and Dion was never officially questioned. Once the report became public, outrage exploded online. People asked the obvious question: could Dion have tracked her down after all these years, and did Yara know it, prompting her to disappear? Blogger Harlow quickly dug into public records and discovered that Dion was currently living in a secluded cabin deep in the Washington forest with no listed address, only traceable by satellite. A team of journalists made the trek. They didn't find Dion, but they did capture footage of the cabin surrounded by security cameras, a dust-covered SUV, and the most chilling detail, a handwritten sign on the door that read, "Some people don't disappear. They just know how to hide better." When the video went viral, police were forced to investigate. But by the time they arrived, Dion was gone. Inside the cabin were only survival supplies, dry food, forest trail maps, flashlights, and a weathered jacket bearing strands of long brown hair, later confirmed to be human. DNA testing is underway, as news of Dion Vance in the remote cabin spread. Public pressure mounted against the Clearwater Police Department. A justice advocacy group focused on cases involving missing women of color began asking even bigger questions. Why had Dion's stalking complaint been ignored for 7 years? Why wasn't any warning flagged when Yara moved despite credible evidence she was being threatened? Police responded vaguely, claiming the Portland case was not considered relevant to the victim's current safety and lacked sufficient criminal evidence. But those answers only fueled the backlash. Former Seattle police investigator Latrice Monroe spoke out on a podcast, saying if Yara were a white woman with proof someone was stalking her, sending her pictures of her child, and then she vanished, I don't think anyone would be calling that irrelevant. Her words struck a chord. More communities came forward, sharing similar stories where women of color had reported danger but weren't believed, with tragic consequences. At the same time, Harlow revealed a crucial detail previously overlooked on doc footage. The morning Yara and Lena disappeared, a shadowy figure appeared in the corner of the frame, almost obscured by a delivery truck. The figure stood still for exactly 47 seconds before disappearing toward the maintenance yard. After enhancing the image, the figure's jacket matched the same outdoor coat found in Dion's cabin. Police originally claimed it was a port employee, but after reviewing the shift log, no one had been scheduled or admitted to being present at that time. This shifted the case from an unexplained disappearance to a full-blown criminal investigation. But the damage was already done. Delayed response bias and lack of transparency had cost time that couldn't be regained. And if Yara had tried to speak up, how many chances had been lost simply because no one believed her? 4 days after police searched Dion's abandoned cabin, something unexpected surfaced near the Clearwater dock. A small fishing boat returning from an overnight run spotted a floating object near the Cormorant Rocks, the very area previously marked too dangerous to access. At first, the captain thought it was driftwood, but as they neared it, became clear it was part of a makeshift wooden raft, weathered and sun-bleached, but still bearing signs of waterproof tape and a handwritten marker, L3, Mom says don't be scared. The raft piece was brought ashore and sent for forensic testing, but what shook investigators wasn't what was on the raft, it was what they heard. Inside, a sealed plastic case attached to the side was a long-life, battery-powered voice recorder. When they pressed play, a small voice began to sing. Lena's lullaby, the one she used to sing while out kayaking with her mom. After the song came a whisper, fragile and faint but enhanced through audio tech. "I'm still here. I did what Mom said. Can anyone hear me?" Audio engineers confirmed the recording was no more than 3 weeks old. The entire community held its breath. Could Lena still be alive somewhere out there? Then came a new twist. An anonymous video landed in Harlow's inbox. The clip, shot from a car's dash cam, showed a woman in a hat and long coat, walking with a little girl across a dirt road near the Olympic National Forest, nearly 200 miles from Clearwater. The footage was grainy, their faces unclear, but the girl's familiar gait and a blue ribbon tied in her hair made many believe it had to be Lena. The search was reignited, not just to investigate, but to rescue what many once thought was lost. Because now the question had changed. It was no longer, what happened to Yara and Lena? It was, can we find them before it's too late? 10 days after the anonymous video was sent to blogger, Harlow law enforcement, working alongside the state tactical unit, launched a massive search across a remote section of the Olympic National Forest. Drones, K9 teams, and native forest patrol units were deployed. In a low-lying area accessible only through a hidden trail, they discovered signs of a temporary shelter, neatly cut branches, small shoe prints, an empty thermal sleeping bag wrapper, and most notably a small plastic container labeled in marker every 3 days, only under low moon. Based on disturbed soil and residual heat detected by aerial scans, the tactical team concluded the site had been abandoned no more than 48 hours earlier. A nighttime search was launched immediately. But when they reached the next suspected location, narrow cave near a creek, they found only a scrap of gray fabric, a shallow footprint, and a symbol drawn with stones, a crescent moon and an arrow pointing down. It matched the exact drawing Lena had once made in her school notebook. The rescue attempt had failed, and more alarmingly, it appeared that whoever they were trying to find knew the team's every move. With no one found on site, public opinion began to splinter. One group believed Yara was alive, hiding with Lena, as part of a calculated plan to evade someone dangerous, possibly Dion. The other feared that Yara had been forced to leave Lena behind, and the person now moving with the child might not be her mother. A chilling new theory emerged. Lena may have been conditioned to believe everything is okay, while in reality she's being held under the illusion of safety. On Reddit, a viral post compared the walking posture of the woman in the dashcam video to footage of Yara from years earlier, concluding the shoulder frame and stride length don't match. This fueled new speculation. Who was the woman in the video? Was she impersonating Yara, or possibly a former ally now continuing the escape with Lena alone? Some even proposed a more extreme theory, that Yara never actually disappeared, that she simply changed her identity, and Lena was the key to some long-game plan that had never truly been interrupted. Amid this growing storm of theories, Yara's mother, Naomi, released a voicemail she'd received roughly 1 month after the disappearance from an unknown number. In it, a female voice eerily similar to Yara's "I can't explain everything now, but you have to trust me. Lena is safe, and I won't let anyone hurt her." Police confirmed the call came from a public payphone in Montana nearly 1,000 miles from Clearwater, but surveillance in the area had been removed the week prior for maintenance. Public trust in the investigation began to erode. Each new clue brought more theories, but no certainty. No eyewitnesses, no conclusive DNA. No one could say for sure if Yara was still alive. No one knew where Lena was. And if she was alive, who was she living with? All that remained were stone symbols, scattered voice recordings, and a growing list of unanswered questions. Just when it seemed like the story had begun to fade from public memory, a man named Elias Hampton, an apiary owner near the Olympic Forest, reached out to blogger Harlow with an unexpected account. Elias recalled that on a quiet autumn afternoon, while checking bear traps along the forest's edge, he saw a woman and a young girl walking toward the coastal cliffs. What stuck with him most wasn't the sight, it was the sound. a soft lullaby, one he hadn't heard since childhood, long faded from radio. The little girl sang it perfectly, not a single note off Elias said, like someone had drilled it into her. He noted the woman wore a hood, moved quickly, but not frantically. He hadn't managed to record them, but he still had something, a small notebook the girl had dropped. Inside was a single penciled sentence, in uneven handwriting. Mom says don't be scared. Behind the fog is where it's safe. That note reignited the fire. A popular independent podcast featured Elias' story, and within 48 hours, the episode racked up millions of plays. The search was alive again, but this time, it wasn't just law enforcement's responsibility anymore. 1 year after the disappearance, Clearwater held a memorial for Yara and Lena. No official death was declared, but the loss hung heavy in the air. A photo of the two was placed at the center of a white flower altar, surrounded by handwritten notes. "We haven't forgotten. They'll come home. They deserve the truth." At the ceremony, Naomi Yara's mother spoke briefly. "I don't believe my daughter walked away from everything without a reason, and I refuse to believe my granddaughter disappeared from this world without anyone knowing." After her remarks, a middle-aged woman approached Naomi and handed her a slip of paper, replica of Lena's classroom, drawing the crescent moon, the arrow, and the line, "If no light shows, follow the singing." She didn't say a word, just touched Naomi's shoulder, then vanished into the crowd. No one could identify who she was. 2 weeks later, a kayaker out at dawn recorded a strange sound near the Cormorant Rocks. It was faint, almost hidden in the mist, but unmistakable, the exact lullaby Lena once sang, echoing from beneath the water's surface. Underwater recorders were immediately deployed. For 6 consecutive mornings at exactly 5 to 17 a.m., the melody returned same notes, same rhythm, same duration. Audio technicians confirmed it wasn't mechanical, not marine wildlife, and not electromagnetic interference. It sounded like someone was broadcasting a recording, but who and why, no one could say. One thing, however, became clear amid the doubt, the grief and the unraveling theories. The one thing no one could let go of was the feeling, deep and persistent, that someone out there was still trying to be heard. And that's why, even now, over a year later, every morning as the first light hits the shoreline, the people of Clearwater still pause, still turn their ears to the sea, because maybe, just maybe, today will be the day they return. Some disappearances shock us, some enrage us, but then there are stories like Yara and Lena, the ones that linger long after the headlines fade. Stories that cut deep because they speak to the quiet things a mother's love, a child's trust, and the aching silence between them. For over a year, evidence surfaced and vanished. Theories rose and collapsed. Witnesses appeared, then disappeared, just like the mother and daughter at the center of it all. Nothing concrete, nothing certain. Yet every fragment, from the recordings to the crescent moon symbols to the lullabies beneath the sea, felt impossible to forget. Did Yara truly plan an escape from some unseen danger? Is Lena living in a world she's been taught to believe is safe, even if it's not? Or is this all a strange sequence of coincidences, fed by the collective hope of a community desperate for answers? We may never know for sure. But that doesn't make the story any less important, because sometimes remembering, telling the story again and again is the only way to keep them alive in this world.